Mirin Dajo, naked from the waist up, remains motionless in the center of the room. His assistant quickly approaches from behind and pierces the kidney area with a 1-meter sword. Absolute silence. The students and professors look on open-mouthed, unable to believe what they see. There is no doubt the blade has pierced the body. The tip protrudes through the front. The most astonishing thing is that Dajo maintains absolute calm. Not a muscle moves on his face. Not a drop of blood appears on his skin. One might think that it is collective hypnosis. However, the cameras and photographic devices that recorded the scene, impossible to hypnotize, confirm the reality of what was happening. Arnold Gerrit Henskes was born on August 6, 1912, in Rotterdam. In his childhood and youth, Noel, as his friends called him, repeatedly experienced strange events. He liked to draw, and once he painted the portrait of a deceased aunt whom he had never seen before, since she had lived her entire life in South Africa. He portrayed her with such precision, it was as if she had posed in person. In addition, he used to paint in his dreams. Often upon waking up in the morning, he would discover with surprise that his hands were stained with paint. The studio would be in disarray, and on the easel there would be a finished painting with his signature. The decisive turning point in Noel's life occurred when he was 33 years old. While doing some work at home, he was seriously injured. However, the wound closed almost instantly. There was no bleeding. Then, Noel deliberately made several cuts on his arm. The effect was the same. After a brief reflection, Arnold decided to use his unique gift. He left his job at the design office, where he led a group of architects, and moved to Amsterdam. He felt that he had been called to bring a message of peace to humanity. To begin with, he started going around the cafes and bars of the Dutch capital, offering customers the opportunity to stab him for a small amount of money. Some, especially those who were a bit drunk, accepted the risky proposal and stabbed him. Yet Arnold remained unharmed. Soon the whole city began to talk about him. Arnold Henskes then changed his name to a more artistic one, Mirin Dajo, which in Esperanto means wonderful gift. Like many of his contemporaries, he believed that barriers between people could be overcome with the help of this artificial language. His new name would make him famous. Indeed, soon Mirin Dajo became known in neighboring countries. His performances were held in prestigious concert halls and gathered a huge number of spectators. Enthusiastic newspaper articles also contributed to his fame. After a performance in Zurich's largest auditorium, the Corso, all of Europe began talking about this miraculous man. It was astonishing. His assistant would drive swords and daggers into his chest and back, and he would not react at all. In an interview with a popular magazine, Mirin Dajo declared, "I am not an actor, I am a prophet. If one believes in God, one must learn to master one's body. My body is nothing more than an instrument through which God wants to show that the human being was not created for fear or destruction, but for love and spiritual union. People would not believe me if I started to talk, but seeing my invulnerability, they will believe." He said that humanity was heading towards self-destruction because of wars and materialism, and that his mission was to demonstrate the spiritual immortality of the human being, to restore faith in God and in peace. After the Second World War, in which he lost friends, he believed that human suffering had generated spiritual blindness, and he wanted to shake humanity with an example that proved that the spirit is stronger than the body and weapons. In some interviews, he emphasized that his demonstrations were not a circus show, but a sign from God, so that people would understand that by killing each other, they destroy themselves. The prophet's popularity was growing, but in the press, articles discrediting him began to appear. Their authors claimed that Mirin Dajo was simply a skillful illusionist. In response, our protagonist decided to perform before doctors on the condition that the report of said performance be published in the press. One of the eyewitnesses described this meeting as follows. Mirin Dajo, naked from the waist up, remains motionless in the center of the room. His assistant quickly approaches from behind and pierces the kidney area with a 1-meter sword. Absolute silence. The students and professors look on open-mouthed, unable to believe what they see. There is no doubt the blade has pierced the body. The tip protrudes through the front. The most astonishing thing is that Dajo maintains absolute calm. Not a muscle moves on his face. Not a drop of blood appears on his skin. One might think that it is collective hypnosis. However, the cameras and photographic devices that recorded the scene, impossible to hypnotize, confirmed the reality of what was happening. Shortly after, Mirin Dajo met Jan Dirk de Groot, who became his inseparable assistant. De Groot also recorded the teachings he received from Dajo. In a future book about him, a researcher would write, Dajo saw his mission as a great spiritual preaching addressed to humanity, which had just gone through a war. He wanted to show that spiritual strength can overcome any pain, and that only inner peace can bring outer peace. Jan proposed bringing in a group of assistants to make the performances more dynamic. Everything was meticulously prepared in advance. In rapid succession, they drove swords, knives, stilettos, and darts into his body, turning him into a kind of pincushion. Sometimes there were so many sharp objects that the miraculous man looked like a porcupine. To ensure continued public interest, Dajo made his demonstrations more complex. Sometimes the swords were heated red hot, which was evident from the smell of burnt flesh. Other times, rusty blades smeared with poison were used. At a performance in Zurich, to prove there was no deception, his chest was pierced with 3 hollow tubes of 8 millimeters in diameter, through which water passed. The assistants poured boiling water over his body, but his skin did not even redden. Once he even invited journalists and ran before them through the park, pierced by a sword. De Groot calculated that during his performances, Dajo was pierced more than 50 times a day, and in some cases more than 100. The blades passed through the heart, lungs, spleen, and even several organs at once, without a single drop of blood appearing. De Groot was convinced that Dajo had at least 3 guardian angels who protected him and indicated which trials his body could withstand. In 1947, Mirin Dajo traveled to Switzerland. On May 31st, he showed his extraordinary abilities in Zurich's cantonal hospital, before numerous doctors and journalists. During the demonstration, X-rays were taken that clearly showed how the swords and needles pierced his vital organs: lungs, liver, kidneys, spleen, and even the heart, sometimes several at once. When the blades were removed, no blood appeared, and the small entry and exit marks disappeared within seconds. Similar experiments were carried out in Basel and Bern, but the doctors could not explain. He said that it was not the metal that passed through his body, but that he himself dematerialized and threaded himself onto the metal without pain. He claimed that with the help of higher forces, he could dematerialize the part of the body that was pierced. In other words, he claimed to be able to consciously alter the physical characteristics of his organism, moving it to another dimension. He even said he could activate and deactivate this ability at will. One day, upon tripping and breaking his arm, he activated his gift, set the bone in place, and the fracture disappeared. De Groot said that Dajo had telepathic abilities and could heal people. He also claimed that once he became completely invisible and only rematerialized when he lost his inner balance. Mirin Dajo claimed that he never sought fame or wealth. His purpose was to demonstrate that there exists a higher force, God, who had granted him his invulnerability as a sign that there is something beyond the material world. Curiously, swords and daggers did not harm him at all, but the spectators reacted with great emotion. During one performance, a particularly sensitive woman suffered a heart attack. In another, when the sword grazed a bone and a slight squeak was heard, several people fainted. Dajo deeply wished that people would understand his message. He publicly affirmed that there is something above reality and that our spiritual essence is more important than the material. He believed that his extraordinary gift was a sign of the human being's connection with the universe, an exhortation to seek the true meaning of life. Some sources mention that Dajo said he did not like to eat meat. A man with such gifts could not know how much time he had left to live, but Dajo predicted his death. And so it happened. After the episode in Zurich, when several people fainted, he was forbidden to perform before large audiences, he returned to bars and cafes, where he again astonished the public by swallowing a steel needle, claiming that it would be surgically extracted without anesthesia. The needle remained in his body for 2 days and was then removed. The wound closed before everyone's eyes. 10 days later, while Jan went to the airport to pick up his wife, Dajo stayed home and lay down in bed. When Jan returned, he found him still lying down. He knew that his friend often meditated by leaving his body, so he checked his pulse. It was strong and regular, but Dajo did not get up that day nor the next. He had never entered such a prolonged trance. On the 3rd day, de Groot returned to the room. There was no longer any pulse or breathing. Dajo was declared dead on May 26, 1948. The autopsy revealed that the cause of death was an aortic rupture, caused by the needle he had swallowed days earlier. The surgeon who removed the needle and Jan de Groot disagreed with this conclusion. Jan de Groot testified that Dajo knew he was going to die because, after leaving Holland for Switzerland, he had declared that he would never see his homeland again. Dajo had refused de Groot's help in swallowing the needle. It is believed he did so to avoid responsibility for his actions. Both his life and death remained shrouded in mystery. Only those who managed to hear the message he tried to convey will truly understand him. A parapsychologist explained, Mirin Dajo was, without a doubt, a medium, what we would today call a psychic. He was an intermediary between the physical world and the beyond. During his demonstrations, his consciousness moved to another reality in which his physical body ceased to exist. Therefore, there was nothing that could be harmed. Everything that happened to him demonstrates how relative our existence is. Physical reality, with its rigid laws, is nothing but a projection of a deeper and more multifaceted world. Mirin Dajo received more than 500 stab wounds in 3 years. Without suffering any harm, he left the medical profession, who witnessed the miracles, perplexed. From a scientific point of view, his case remains a genuine mystery. Only one conclusion remains. Between heaven and earth, there are many more things than humanity knows. Luc Bergin said in his book Das Wunder Mirin Dajo, published in 2004, that despite his early death at the age of 35, he left his friends with unique memories that accompanied them to old age. Konrad Gubler lived to 93 years old, and at that time, 2004, his wife, Martha Gubler, was still alive at 101, Frida Böttler was 89, Karl Böttler 92, and Robert Forster 94. Jan de Groot was about to turn 90, and Ruth Bura, over 80, was still in good health. The almost biblical longevity of Dajo's acquaintances leaves room for questions, as do his miraculous healings and his supernatural powers. His ascetic nature, untimely and mysterious death, and inspired preachings evoked the figure of Jesus of Nazareth.